For nearly 30 years, a predator driven by a dark obsession unleashed unspeakable violence upon women, leaving a trail of mutilated bodies in his wake, all in the pursuit of his grotesque desires. It was a desperate call from one victim that ultimately illuminated the path to justice. Without it, the perpetrator may have continued to evade capture. Though she tragically lost her life, her 911 call ignited an investigation that would reveal numerous other victims. This merciless criminal would forever be etched in infamy as the Long Island perpetrator. The timeline of events that led to this notorious title began on November 21st, 1993, when two hunters ventured into a dense woodland in Southampton, New York. As they approached 50 Old Fish Cove Road, they stumbled upon a disturbing sight, a partially clothed body lying in the underbrush, seemingly abandoned for at least 2 days. Authorities arrived promptly, attempting to identify the victim through her clothing. The medical examiner confirmed the harrowing details. The 28-year-old had been savagely strangled, with evidence suggesting she had been assaulted and murdered in a fit of lustful rage. Fingerprint analysis revealed her identity as Sandra Costilla, whose prints had been entered into the database following an arrest for fare evasion the previous year. During the autopsy, the examiner discovered 3 strands of hair on her body that did not belong to her, likely belonging to her assailant. The examination revealed over 25 injuries, indicative of sharp force trauma inflicted upon her. In the aftermath of her death, her face and torso bore the horrific marks of violence. Originally hailing from Trinidad and Tobago, Sandra had been living a transient life in New York City, with her last known address in Queens, though she was not residing there at the time of her demise. While rumors circulated regarding her potential involvement in escorting, such claims were never substantiated. Authorities suggested that her lifestyle mirrored this notion, as she often accepted money, favors, and gifts in exchange for her companionship. The trail was sparse, yet approximately 8 years later, in 2001, prosecutors from Suffolk County unveiled a link to John Bittrolff. A local carpenter, Bittrolff had been convicted for the tragic deaths of 2 women, whose remains were discovered in the same vicinity of Long Island. However, due to insufficient evidence, he faced no charges. The case lingered in obscurity, gathering dust on the shelves. A decade after Sandra's mysterious disappearance, Manorville once again captured headlines. This time, a dismembered female torso had washed ashore, discovered by a woman walking her dog along the beach. The victim was found without clothing, her body disfigured, decapitated, and missing her hands with a tattoo of cherries on her back that had been brutally mutilated in an apparent attempt to remove it. The medical examiner skillfully reconstructed the tattoo's inscription, leading to the identification of the victim as Jessica Taylor, a 20-year-old escort. Her mother, Elizabeth Baskiel, recalled how family meant everything to Jessica, who cherished moments spent with her 2 brothers and loved to snuggle with her mother on the couch. When Jessica failed to attend her mother's birthday celebration, her family sensed an ominous turn of events. The tattoo that ultimately identified her read Remy's Angel, referring to Khalil White, a man who had a personal connection with Jessica, described variably as her boyfriend and pimp. While Khalil insisted she would have been working in Queens, other reports indicated she was last seen in Manhattan. Born in New York City in 1984, Jessica faced adversity and turned to escorting, with police records noting her arrests in Atlantic City and Washington, D.C. In the twilight of her life, just a month prior to her tragic end, she found herself ensnared by the law in the vibrant streets of New York City. During the days between July 18th and 21st, she traversed the bustling avenues near the Port Authority bus terminal, an area once infamously dubbed the Minnesota Strip. This particular stretch of 8th Avenue, nestled between 42nd and 57th Streets, gained notoriety in the 1970s for its rampant prostitution activities, a consequence of Minnesota's stringent anti-prostitution legislation that drove many women to seek refuge in the allure of New York City. The punk rock group, The Dictators, immortalized this phenomenon in their song, The Minnesota Strip, capturing the essence of young women arriving in the metropolis with dreams of grandeur, only to find themselves ensnared in a life of desperation. Information regarding the perpetrator was scarce. On May 1st, 2010, Shannon Gilbert vanished after a meeting with a client she had met on Craigslist in the enclave of Oak Beach, Long Island. That fateful night, she made a chilling call to 911, exclaiming, "There is somebody after me," before fleeing the premises at approximately 5 a.m. Her haunting plea, "Somebody is after me, please," ignited a search that ultimately unearthed 4 bodies during the winter of 2010. Among them was Melissa Barthelemy, an escort who had disappeared 3 years earlier in 2007. The officer who stumbled upon her remains was blissfully unaware of the grim revelations that awaited. Mere days later, 3 additional call girls were discovered lifeless within a mere quarter-mile radius, each victim having advertised their services on Craigslist and all in their 20s. Megan Waterman, hailing from Maine, vanished after leaving the Holiday Inn to meet a client on Long Island. The second victim, Amber Lynn Costello, was from North Babylon, while Maureen Brainerd Barnes hailed from Connecticut. In the bustling heart of New York, they toiled, yet beyond this shared locale, no threads connected their lives. Authorities ultimately classified these tragic events as homicides, suspecting the existence of a potential serial killer. The latest victims, now infamously known as the Gilgo Four, remained shrouded in mystery, as no suspects had been publicly identified despite exhaustive investigations. On March 29, 2011, during a probe at Gilgo Beach, police unearthed a skull, forearm, and hands, remnants of Jessica Taylor, whose torso had been discovered in Manorville back in 2003. A coalition of detectives united to delve into the case, linking it to a perpetrator operating in Long Island. Numerous other cases were dismissed, lacking a discernible pattern. Among the crucial evidence amassed over the years was a black leather belt embossed with the initials HM, though some interpreted it as RM or even RH. As a decade slipped by, February 2022 saw the formation of a task force comprising local, state, and federal investigators who concentrated on cell phone records, meticulously examining all numbers dialed by the victims or those who reached out to them in their final days. Friends, family, and acquaintances underwent thorough scrutiny, leading the investigation to a singular suspect and 2 pivotal locations, Midtown Manhattan and Massapequa Park. The elusive assailant operated within these confines, discarding the bodies into the ocean, where they would ultimately wash ashore, an outcome he had not foreseen. A month later, the task force achieved a significant breakthrough. Amber Lynn Costello, whose remains were discovered in 2010, had a roommate named Dave Schaller, who recalled a Chevrolet Avalanche parked outside their residence the day prior to her disappearance. Amber was last seen with a client on September 2nd, 2010, a tall man with oval glasses. Dave recounted a harrowing encounter, returning home to find Amber concealed in the bathroom, threatened by a large man he described as like Frankenstein. He subsequently confronted the individual, resulting in a physical confrontation that compelled the man to depart in his truck. The following day, additional witnesses reported observing a similar vehicle shortly after Amber set out to meet her client. Dave mentioned that this man was the first individual who came to mind upon hearing about Amber's case. For 13 long years, that visage and truck remained etched in his memory. This would ultimately prove to be a significant lead. The task force investigating these disappearances and homicides acquired the registration history of the truck. The distinctive dark green Chevrolet Avalanche was traced back to a single individual who matched the description of the Long Island perpetrator, a 59-year-old architect named Rex Heuermann. To the authorities' astonishment, further investigation revealed that Dave's description of the assailant had not been linked back to the owner, despite fitting the profile perfectly. Instead, it had been relegated to a case file, overlooked and unexamined. Every aspect of Rex Heuermann's movements implicated him. His cell phone signals were detected near Midtown Manhattan, close to his office situated at 5th Avenue and 36th Street. The second set of signals was traced to Avenue in Massapequa Park, where Heuermann resided. A deeper inquiry in July 2022 unveiled intriguing details. Officers discreetly rummaged through the refuse outside Heuermann's residence. The trash contained 11 bottles, which held vital DNA evidence that would ultimately determine the fate of the Long Island victims. This DNA was compared to hair samples retrieved from the bodies of Sandra Costilla and Megan Waterman. To their surprise, the evidence not only implicated Rex Heuermann, but also included his wife's DNA. However, she was exonerated once investigators established that she was out of state during each of the Gilgo Beach tragedies. The question remained, how did her DNA find its way to the victims? Another lead emerged when detectives uncovered pizza crusts disposed by Rex Heuermann in his trash. Undercover detectives had been monitoring Heuermann, anticipating that he would inadvertently provide them with evidence for his arrest, and he did so in a rather literal manner. While being observed, officers witnessed him dispose of a pizza box in a trash can located on the sidewalk outside his office. The Suffolk County Crime Laboratory subsequently retrieved the discarded remnants and conducted DNA testing. Investigators also delved into Heuermann's online activity, which unveiled troubling interests. He had conducted over 200 searches related to the Gilgo 4 case, even exploring images of the victims' grieving families. Some of his inquiries were particularly revealing. Why can't law enforcement trace the calls made by the Long Island serial offender? Why has the Long Island serial offender not been apprehended? And could new phone technology be crucial in solving the case? His engagement with the case was evident as he sought out podcasts and documentaries about the 4 well-known victims. Ironically, he even researched the 2022 task force established to investigate him, all while they were simultaneously gathering evidence against him. Investigators confirmed that he utilized burner phones to contact escort services and maintained a separate email account for soliciting street workers through Craigslist. A Google warrant was discreetly obtained to prevent Heuermann from becoming aware of the ongoing investigations and the proximity of law enforcement to his activities. His email accounts revealed a penchant for disturbing and morbid adult films, primarily featuring the abuse of women and children. He also used this account to exchange selfies with potential intimate partners. Further inquiries revealed additional suspicious aspects of his background. Notably, from 2014 to 2022, Heuermann filed 4 lawsuits in New York courts against drivers, claiming serious and lasting injuries from car accidents. Court documents reveal that 3 of the cases involving Rex Heuermann were either settled or discontinued, while the latest case remains active. In an April 2018 deposition related to one of these matters, Heuermann divulged details about his personal and professional life. He disclosed that he resided in his childhood home in Massapequa Park, Long Island, alongside his wife of 22 years, their daughter, and his stepson. When queried about his athletic pursuits, he noted that his sole competitive endeavor was rifle shooting. A passionate gun collector, Heuermann boasted an impressive array of firearms. Additionally, he had been in default on his taxes for over a decade, with Nassau County records indicating that the IRS had filed 6 tax liens against him between 2010 and 2021, accumulating a tax debt exceeding $425,000. In light of this, police began gathering evidence to construct a case for his arrest. Who is Rex Heuermann? An architect hailing from Manhattan, Heuermann attended Alfred G. Berner High School while continuing to live in his family home in Massapequa Park. The residence, poorly supported by bare wood, featured grass on the roof and weathered shingles, standing out amidst the well-kept homes of the neighborhood. This working-class suburb was a mere hour's drive from Midtown Manhattan, where he pursued his career. Heuermann's father, an aerospace engineer, contributed to satellite construction and was also a woodworking enthusiast, crafting furniture in his home workshop. He married Asa Ellerup in the same house, raising her son with special needs as his own, while they also welcomed a daughter together, who now works as an architectural consultant in Manhattan. Since 1987, Rex Heuermann has been involved in significant projects throughout the city, including work at John F. Kennedy Airport and for esteemed clients like Cipriani. Steve Kramberg, a property manager who collaborated with Heuermann for 3 decades, characterized him as a big, goofy guy, a little bit on the nerdy side. In stark contrast, individuals such as neighbor Nicholas Furchaw depicted Heuermann as creepy and unapproachable, a figure who seemed to dwell in the shadows. Residents recounted their habitual avoidance of his residence during Halloween, cautioning their children to steer clear as he was not particularly inviting to trick-or-treaters. Heuermann was perceived as an ordinary man adhering to a predictable routine, commuting to the Massapequa Park station, clad in a suit and clutching a briefcase. Neighbor Barry Auslander noted that Heuermann resembled a typical businessman, someone who seamlessly blended into the background without raising any eyebrows. He was neither exceptionally charming nor overtly disagreeable. As the founder and president of RH Consultants and Associates, an architectural firm established in 1994, Heuermann employed his daughter, Victoria, within the company. The firm boasted a respectable clientele, including Catholic charities, the New York City Department of Education, and major entities at John F. Kennedy International Airport, such as American Airlines. An interior designer who shared a networking group with Heuermann recounted receiving disconcerting voicemails from him, despite their lack of prior collaboration or personal acquaintance. These unsettling messages were left at the end of February, following her departure from the group, with their only connection being through this professional network. In February 2022, as the task force began to focus on Heuermann, he made an appearance on a YouTube realtor show. This interview provided a glimpse into Rex Heuermann's character, as he articulated his self-image to host Antoine Amira. The 18-minute segment illuminated aspects of his personality, revealing his penchant for studying building and administrative codes, as well as his collection of books deemed outdated. By June 12, 2023, forensic analysis confirmed that the mitochondrial DNA profiles from male hair found on Megan Waterman matched the DNA swab taken from a pizza. This discovery was a precise alignment with the crime scene and a direct DNA sample, granting them the necessary warrant. With this evidence in hand, they were poised to apprehend their suspect. Detectives speculated that Heuermann may have committed his heinous acts within the confines of his residence in Massapequa Park, Long Island, New York, while his wife and children were away visiting relatives in another state. After a period of careful investigation, they amassed sufficient evidence to proceed with his arrest. Contractors who had previously worked on the property reported the existence of a soundproof secret chamber within the home. Furthermore, Rex Heuermann possessed an extensive arsenal of over 279 licensed firearms, with 90 of those being publicly acknowledged as part of his collection. This necessitated a discreet and swift approach to his capture, minimizing the risk of a violent confrontation. On July 23, 2023, as he strolled along the sidewalk in Midtown Manhattan, he remained blissfully unaware of the plainclothes officers encircling him, intent on making an arrest without incident. To their astonishment, Hoyerman complied almost passively, displaying no emotion, merely an unsettling silence. Following his apprehension, authorities proceeded to his Massapequa Park residence to seize electronic devices that could harbor vital evidence. During this operation, they also notified his wife and children of the serious charges against him. At the moment of his arrest, his family was present at home. As police vehicles arrived with sirens blaring, Asa and her children were left in a state of shock and confusion. Neighbors emerged to witness the unfolding drama, struggling to reconcile the image of the seemingly ordinary architect who led a conventional 9-to-5 life with that of a potentially dangerous criminal. Although initial claims of a soundproof vault were dismissed, investigators did uncover a substantial vault in the basement, secured by a formidable iron door. Inside, they discovered a significant stockpile of weapons and ammunition, all registered to Hoyerman. Intriguingly, it was revealed that Rex Hoyerman had connections to the world of Hollywood. Esteemed actor Billy Baldwin took to Twitter to express his shock upon discovering that the suspect in the Long Island serial killings, Rex Hoyerman, was a former classmate from his high school days. The Suffolk County District Attorney's Office has formally charged Hoyerman with first-degree murder, alongside 3 counts of second-degree murder. The victims associated with these heinous acts, known as the Gilgo Four, include Melissa Barthelemy, aged 24, Megan Waterman, aged 22, Amber Lynn Costello, aged 27, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes, aged 25. During his court appearance, Hoyerman entered a plea of not guilty. However, bail was denied due to the horrific nature of the crimes. He is now under strict surveillance to prevent any self-harm. Meanwhile, his family has been besieged by the media as they grapple with this grim reality, often filmed while attempting to retrieve their belongings from their home. It is suspected that Hoyerman exploited his family's absence to carry out these brutal acts, committing the murders each time they left town. There is also speculation that he attempted to frame John Bitrolf by ensuring his DNA was found on at least 2 of the victims, mimicking his methods to create a false narrative. Just a week following his arrest, Asa Hoyerman initiated divorce proceedings. The residence underwent an extensive search lasting 2 weeks, during which a significant trove of evidence was discovered. Among the findings was a planning document on a laptop belonging to the Hoyerman family, seemingly drafted in 2000 and edited as recently as 2002. This document outlines 4 categories: problems, supplies, DS, presumably referring to dump site, and TRG, likely indicating target. Notably, under the TRG category, the phrase "small is good" suggests a chilling reference to the size of the victims, all of whom have been petite women, aligning with this unsettling entry. The document further elaborates with sections labeled pre-prep, prep, and post-event, detailing actions such as change tires and dispose of pics. Furthermore, a distinct segment seemingly outlines the procedures undertaken for the disposal of the remains. Instructions such as detach head and hands, eliminate signs of torture, and prepare for transport are categorized under body preparation. His objective was to identify these victims, pursue them relentlessly, exert control, and ultimately extinguish their lives. Criminal experts speculate that Hoyerman may have continued his heinous acts even after 2010. These were merely the victims who gained public attention. On June 7, 2024, Rex Hoyerman faced charges for 2 additional murders beyond the 4 that would secure his imprisonment. Justice for Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costia was finally within reach, thanks to DNA analysis. The hair recovered from their remains matched Rex Heuermann's DNA with certainty. Despite his not guilty plea, the evidence is irrefutable. He will face prosecution for his horrific deeds. Jasmine Robinson, Jessica's cousin and a steadfast advocate for justice, remarked after Heuermann's arrest in 2023, "We are acutely aware that this year marks 2 decades since Jessica was taken from us. It mirrors the length of time she graced this world before her life was cruelly cut short." She also expressed optimism that Heuermann's apprehension might catalyze progress in Jessica's case, which indeed occurred in 2024. Jasmine further reflected, "Jesso was a remarkable individual, a true force of nature. Her immense heart and the love she inspired are deeply missed. She was a beacon of inspiration and someone I admired greatly. With a spirited resolve, she stood her ground against disrespect." Narborough, a village in Leicestershire, England, is recognized for its exceptional safety. However, it is marked by a singular tragic event that occurred in 1983. At that time, 15-year-old Linda Mann resided in Narborough and attended Lutterworth Grammar School and Community College. She was the younger sibling of Susan Mann, who was 2 years older. Their mother, Kathleen Mann, relocated to Narborough following the dissolution of her marriage. In 1980, Kathleen married Edward Eastwood when Susan was 14 and Linda was 12. Linda was characterized as a typical teenager, quiet yet well-liked. She enjoyed her studies and cherished time spent with friends. Navigating adolescence posed little difficulty for her. An adventurous spirit, she embraced the joys of growing up, including music, hairstyles, makeup, and fashion. When funds for clothing were limited, Linda would babysit to earn money and create her own outfits. On November 21, 1983, Linda set out to visit a friend, but never arrived. She assured Kathleen and Edward that she would return by 10 p.m., but by midnight, her absence prompted her worried parents to contact the police. A search ensued throughout the night. Tragically, at 7:20 a.m., a hospital porter discovered her body on his way to work, initially mistaking it for a mannequin. Linda had been assaulted and strangled, with her jeans removed and her clothing scattered nearby. A scarf was found around her neck, which had been used in the act of strangulation. The news of the crime sent shockwaves through the Narborough community, leading to a heightened awareness among young girls who were encouraged to travel in groups. Investigators combed the vicinity of the crime scene, but found no significant leads. Nearby, a local psychiatric hospital raised suspicions among some residents who speculated that the assailant might have been a patient. However, no evidence supported this theory. During the autopsy, male DNA was identified on Linda's body, indicating the presence of an individual with type A blood, a characteristic shared by approximately 10% of the adult male population in England. Edward's blood was analyzed, revealing that he did not share the same 10% blood group as Linda's killer. A diligent team of investigators canvassed the neighborhood, seeking any leads that might illuminate the case. Meanwhile, another group meticulously compiled a list of individuals with histories of similar offenses in Leicestershire, interrogating each one in turn. A tip came in regarding a youth with spiky hair, reported to have been seen around 8 p.m., just moments from the location where Linda's body was discovered. Regrettably, this individual was never identified. For 3 arduous years, the search for the assailant continued. Then, in 1986, another tragedy unfolded. 15-year-old Dawn Ashworth resided in Enderby, Leicester, with her family, including her brother Andrew. A talented artist, she worked part-time at a local newsagent. On July 31, 1986, Dawn finished her shift at 4 p.m. and set off to visit a friend in Narborough, promising to return by 7 p.m. The last sighting of her was at 4:40 p.m. by motorists on King Edward Avenue. As the clock struck 7:30 p.m., and Dawn remained missing. Her parents grew increasingly anxious. They scoured Narborough in search of her, but to no avail. By 9:40 p.m., they felt compelled to alert the police, their thoughts inevitably drifting to Linda Mann, praying their daughter had not met a similar fate. Days later, officers searching for Dawn discovered her lifeless body in a field adjacent to 10-Pound Lane. She had been brutally assaulted and strangled. The male DNA recovered from her body matched that of Linda's murderer, revealing a chilling connection. Both heinous acts occurred along footpaths, targeting young girls walking alone. The circumstances surrounding their deaths bore striking similarities. Both Linda and Dawn were students at Lutterworth Grammar School and Community College. To facilitate the investigation, police established a mobile incident room at the foot of 10-Pound Lane, inviting villagers and passers-by to share any information they might possess. The police were inundated with approximately 200 phone calls, while numerous individuals flocked to the mobile unit seeking answers. A particularly intriguing lead emerged regarding a motorcycle that had been stationed beneath the motorway bridge. Witnesses reported seeing a young man adorned in a striking red crash helmet in the area around 5 p.m. on the fateful day of August 1st, the day following Dawn's disappearance and just before her body was discovered. A policewoman and a detective noted a youth on a red motorcycle, donning the same red helmet, who appeared to be closely monitoring the search efforts. Meanwhile, a police constable on duty was approached by a 17-year-old kitchen porter from Carlton Hayes Hospital, the psychiatric facility situated near the locations where both Linda and Dawn's remains were ultimately found. The kitchen porter recounted to the constable that he had seen Dawn walking on the very day she vanished. The constable made arrangements to speak with him again to gather further details. However, before this follow-up could occur, crucial information was relayed to the police. This information came from the kitchen porter's friend, who also worked at Carlton Hayes Hospital. Although he had been on holiday when Dawn went missing, he returned to the hospital to collect his wages. At 10 p.m., the kitchen porter excitedly informed him that Dawn's body had been discovered in a hedge near a gate by the M1 bridge. The friend's father, overhearing their conversation, inquired about the source of the kitchen porter's information, noting that there had been no media coverage regarding Dawn's case. "Someone told me," the kitchen porter replied enigmatically. "Her body was hanging from a tree." In reality, Dawn's body was not suspended from a tree, but rather hidden beneath branches and debris. She was located within an access gate leading from 10-Pound Lane to the fields, a mere 10-minute stroll from the M1 bridge. The question lingered. How did the kitchen porter possess such detailed knowledge of Dawn's body's location more than 12 hours prior to its discovery by the police? Upon uncovering this information, investigators promptly proceeded to his residence to effectuate an arrest. The individual responsible for kitchen duties was none other than Richard Buckland. Subsequently, he was transported to the Wigston police station for further interrogation. Throughout the questioning, Buckland provided a series of contradictory statements to the investigators. Yet, he did acknowledge having seen Dawn on the day of her disappearance and confirmed that they had engaged in conversation. Amidst his disjointed narratives, he at one point made a full confession, only to retract it moments later. During his third interview, however, Buckland delivered a comprehensive confession, revealing an abundance of details about the crime scene that had not been disclosed to the public. Prior to Richard Buckland's trial, the body of Dawn Ashworth was laid to rest 4 weeks after her abduction from a village footpath, interred in a quaint cemetery behind St. John the Baptist Church in Enderby. The vicar spoke of her as a vibrant, spirited, and delightful young woman, devoted to her parents, loyal to her family, and brimming with the exuberance of life. A gathering of 200 mourners assembled at the cemetery behind the stone church to pay their respects to Dawn. Meanwhile, investigators were diligently constructing their case against Richard Buckland and became aware of a groundbreaking method known as DNA testing. They were already convinced of his involvement in Dawn's tragic demise, and likely in Linda Mann's as well, but they decided to explore this innovative technology. All DNA evidence from both crime scenes was sent to a promising young geneticist at Leicestershire University, who had recently made a remarkable breakthrough known as genetic fingerprinting. This geneticist was Dr. Alec Jeffreys. Initially uncertain about how to fulfill the investigators' request, Dr. Jeffreys had never conducted such an analysis before. His first applications of this technique had been in resolving an immigration case and a paternity dispute. This would mark the inaugural use of this revolutionary technology in a criminal investigation to identify a suspect. To the astonishment of all, the DNA results revealed that Buckland was innocent, exonerating him from the charges of taking Linda's life. Even more astonishingly, he was also cleared of any involvement in Dawn's tragic fate. Dr. Jeffreys' analyses, however, confirmed that the investigators had indeed identified a crucial fact. The same individual was behind both heinous acts. Richard Buckland was subsequently released, marking a historic moment as he became the first person exonerated through the groundbreaking technique of DNA profiling. Inspector Derek Pierce then assumed command of the investigation. Pierce meticulously sifted through 1,800 messages from the public. Among these, one message highlighted a man whose name had surfaced during the Linda Mann inquiry due to his lack of an alibi and a previous record for indecent exposure. Naturally, countless names had been submitted anonymously by spouses, lovers, competitors, and neighbors. Many linked to individuals with prior offenses of a similar nature. This particular lead, however, did not warrant significant attention. The police received as it had been established that he had not relocated to the village until a month after Linda's tragic murder. Faced with numerous men with no alibi in the vicinity, investigators devised a novel approach. They sought to harness the power of DNA and decided to request voluntary blood and saliva samples from every male resident without an alibi, aged between 17 and 34, in the villages. This initiative was publicly announced on January 2, 1987. Derek Pierce expressed skepticism about the likelihood of the perpetrator volunteering, stating, "We just hope it might somehow flush him out." By the end of January, 1,000 men had participated in the testing, yet only a quarter of that number had been cleared. The forensic laboratory was inundated with samples, and it became evident that the testing process would exceed the initial 2-month estimate. By May, 3,653 men had undergone testing, but only 2,000 had been ruled out due to the overwhelming workload faced by the laboratory technicians. Then, on September 18, 1987, the police received the call they had long awaited. A woman reached out to report a troubling exchange she overheard among a group of friends at the Clarendon pub in Leicester. One of the men, Ian Kelly, spoke audibly about having taken a blood test for the investigation on behalf of his friend, Colin Pitchfork. Investigators delved into Pitchfork's background and discovered his history of indecent exposure. They noted discrepancies between his signature from previous house calls and the one he provided on the day he allegedly submitted the blood test. Colin was married to Carol Pitchfork and worked in a bakery, where he had earned a reputation as a notorious womanizer, entangled in numerous affairs. On September 19, 1987, Derek Pierce visited Ian Kelly's residence to pose some inquiries. Ian, also a baker and a colleague of Pitchfork, initially denied having taken the blood test for him, but later confessed. He recounted Pitchfork's concerns that the police might link him to the tragic fates of Linda and Dawn due to his past offenses. A skilled manipulator, Pitchfork had persuaded Ian to step into the incident room and undergo the blood test in his stead. Later that day, a team of investigators arrived at Pitchfork's home. Detective Mick Thomas confronted him directly. Based on our inquiries, we believe you are responsible for the death of Dawn Ashworth on July 31st, 1986. We suspect another individual submitted a blood sample on your behalf. I am placing you under arrest. Do you comprehend? Colin Pitchfork offered no denial. His expression revealed his awareness of being ensnared. He even admitted to having included Ian Kelly's photograph in his passport to divert suspicion. When Carol Pitchfork entered the room, the situation was explained to her, prompting an immediate and visceral reaction as she began to strike her husband. Understandably, the investigators were hesitant to intervene swiftly. At the police station, Pitchfork began to recount his actions concerning Linda Mann. He expressed his intention to expose himself to her, yet the situation escalated when he realized she would identify him. The day following his heinous act, Pitchfork returned to his vehicle, where his and Carol's infant was secured in the car seat before heading home. Subsequently, Pitchfork confessed to investigators about his actions concerning Dawn Ashworth. Both offenses unfolded in an identical manner. He admitted to the authorities that he was aware of his actions but felt powerless to refrain from them. Furthermore, Pitchfork revealed that he had attempted to eliminate Ian Kelly on several occasions to ensure his silence, but each endeavor was thwarted. On January 22, 1988, the 28-year-old Colin Pitchfork stood trial at the Crown Court in Leicester. Initially, Ian Kelly received an 18-month suspended prison sentence, meaning he would not serve time. Upon exiting the courtroom, he confronted the media, stating, "I was wrong for my actions. I apologize to anyone I have wronged." Colin Pitchfork appeared in casual summer attire, jeans and a short-sleeved shirt. He entered a guilty plea for the murders of both Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth, resulting in a double life sentence. To the shock of investigators, the judge refrained from recommending a minimum term. In the absence of such a recommendation, the life sentence in Britain mirrored that of the United States, allowing for the possibility of Pitchfork's release in as little as 10 to 12 years. This incited outrage among the police. Linda Mann's stepfather, Eddie Eastwood, recounted, "Pitchfork locked eyes with me, staring as if to question my presence. I found it difficult to comprehend. He appeared almost human." Linda's mother, Kathleen, shared, "The sight of him was utterly shocking. I averted my gaze when the lawyer presented those photographs of Linda to the bench, images of her as she was discovered. The cover was lifted, and gasps filled the room as the audience beheld the photos. My brother wept upon seeing them, but fortunately I did not look up. He must never again tread upon these streets. The only fitting punishment is execution. With the advent of this groundbreaking DNA genetic fingerprinting, the possibility of posthumous exoneration is utterly extinguished. There are no longer any justifications for leniency." As the investigations drew to a close, a lingering enigma remained. How did Richard Buckland possess such intricate knowledge of the crime scene involving Dawn Ashworth? The prevailing theory suggests he inadvertently discovered her body while en route to his workplace. Often labeled as the village idiot, this perception likely influenced his decision to confess. The tragic cases of Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth are pivotal in the evolution of DNA technology, leading to the resolution of countless cold cases, a testament to the pioneering work of Dr. Alec Jeffreys.